Hey, hi everyone. So this is going to be the onboarding tutorial video for Farming Engine. So before we start, I just want you to know that all the tutorial videos on the channel about Survival Engine, they still apply to Farming Engine. So if you want to learn about how to replace the main character by your own model, there's a tutorial video about that. It still works with Farming Engine. There's also another video about how to create your own items. So I really encourage you to go and watch those videos as well. So let's get started. First, if you haven't done this already, just go and open a scene here in the scene folder by double clicking. So we'll start with the farm. Maybe the first thing that you will want to know is that if you want to add object in the scene, you can go in the Prefabs folder. And then here you have all the different objects that you can go and just drag and drop into the scene like this if you want. I can go and add a chair. And whenever you add new prefabs into the scene, one important thing that you need to know is that you need to add a unique ID. This is important so that the save file is able to keep track of each individual object. So I can either click here to generate a unique ID, or I can go here at the top Farming Engine and then generate UIDs. And if I do by using these tools, then this will generate for everything in the scene. So now by clicking on this, as you can see here and here, I have the ID already generated. So this is it for prefabs. The next thing that is important to know is that all the data files in the engine are in the resources folder. So you can check here, you have all the items that you can have in your inventory, constructions, plants, and other things like that. And every prefab in the game, or most prefabs that can either be crafted or added to an inventory, they need to have a data file. So for example, this chair here has a data file here that it's linked to. And inside that data file, you can go and change all the important information, usually mostly related to craftings. And you also need to link the prefab that will be spawned when you craft this object or when you dropped it from your inventory. And same thing here, if I click on the bean, it's also linked to a data file. And the reason why all the data files need to be in the resources folder is because they will all be loaded when you start the game automatically, unlike prefabs, which are only loaded if there's a direct reference to them in the inspector or like on something in the scene. The resources will all be loaded, so that allow you to craft them or add them to your inventory or things like that. Also, if you go at the top of the resources folder, you have two generic settings files here. So one is for all the assets, so you can tell where the items will be loaded. So all the items will be loaded from the items folder. Same thing for the plants. And then you have a reference to different prefabs that will be loaded at the beginning. So for the UI or other things like that, and some FX. And then in the game data, you can go and set different settings related to the gameplay. So here you have the time multiplier. So this means that the hours in the games will be 144 times faster than the hours in real life. And here every day will start at 6 a.m. and end at 2 a.m. If you want to create your own item or create your own constructions or other things like this, there is a tool here called create new object and also duplicate object. I won't be explaining these because there's already a tutorial about it. It's a survival engine tutorial, but it's exactly the same concept. So you can go check this tutorial and you will know how you can create more. Okay, let's go back to the items data file. I'll show you some of the settings that you can change. Here you can change all the different crafting items that will be needed to craft this specific item. If you wanted to be able to craft this item, you can say, okay, this will cost 2 wood, like this, wood again, and maybe 1 grass. And then you need to check craftable here, so it's appear in the menu. So as you can see here, I have all the different things that I can craft. and they are all assigned to a category. So if I look at the axe, it's in the tools category and it costs 1 wood and 1 rock. So I will go back into the data files of the axe here, and as you can see, it's in the craft tools groups, which will add it into the group that we saw. It's craftable, so it appears in the menu. If you remove this, it would just not be possible to craft it. And then you have the cost here, craft item, so it costs 1 wood and 1 rock. You could also add fillers. For example, if I add veggie here and then I return into the game and I go look at the axe, so it costs 1 wood, 1 rock and 1 vegetable, which doesn't really make sense for the axe, but this is just for the example. So now if I try to craft, I can, because I have 1 bean and this counts as a vegetable. If I drop it, now I don't have it, so it appears in red. And I will show you where you can assign groups like vegetables. So that was on the bean item. I will click on it here. As you can see, the bean is inside the groups veggie. That's why I can use it to craft the axe. It's the same group that I put here in the filler. And you have requirements, which are things that must be built. You could write here that you need to have a chair. And if you don't have a chair already built, then you're not able to craft this item. Another important thing that you need to know about crafting is that you can assign which groups of objects the character is able to craft. So when I click on the character and then I go on the player character craft, then I can see all the crafting groups that this character is able to craft. So these are all the categories that appear in the menu on the left side. So the first one was tools, then weapons, food, construction, props, and then wearables. Yeah, so it's the same order I have here. So the first one is tools, then weapons, and then same for all the other ones. And the cool thing about these crafting groups is that sometimes you want to be able to craft using a crafting station instead of having the crafting recipe by default on the characters. You can have, if I go into prefab construction, here I have a station workshop. So this one will have different crafting groups. If I click here, I have craft station. So this one can craft all the items that are assigned to the craft workshop group. Here I have the metal armor. This one cannot be crafted by default just from the character. This one can only be crafted at this station. So it has the craft workshop group here. While the axe, which can be crafted by the character, has the craft tools, because this group is assigned to the character. So this covers all the basic for the crafting. Now there's a lot of other settings here that you can change. Everything here is usually just for equipment, so things that you can equip when you set your item to equipment. Then you have weapons, and then consume, that's usually when you eat the item. Which stat will you get? So if I click on the bean again, I will get 8 energy and 1 HP when I eat the bean. And then there's other stats that are not on by default in farming engine, but you can turn them on. I'll show you right now actually. So when you click on the player character, if I go on the attribute, player character attribute, you can see all the different attributes that affect this character. So right now I have health and energy, but if I want, I could go and add hunger if I want. So now this character will be affected by 3 different attributes. This is enough for making this character affected by these new attributes, but it will not appear in the UI if I just do that. So this is another thing I need to show you. I'll do it right now. If I click on UI under prefabs, there's 2 UI canvas here. So I have the one for mobile and I have the one for desktop. So I open this one. This is really where you will want to go inside this prefab if you want to edit all the UI in the game. So one thing you need to know is that some of the windows are hidden by default, but you can go and open them. For example, I click on storage panel you have to change the alpha here to 1 so you're able to see it. So this value is changed automatically during the game, but you can change it between 0 and 1 while you're working on it, so just so you see what you're working on. And then I was saying, yeah, so for the attribute, if I want to add a hunger bar, I can go under bar, and then I have some that are already prepared here, but I could just open it, or I could copy paste another one that I have, for example like this, and then I could change the attribute here. So this one is for energy, but I could change it to hunger or thirst or something else. So this will display this attribute. And then of course you can change the color and the icon by going into the settings. And the last thing that is really important about items is the actions here. So this defines what are the different actions that you can do when you right click on an item in your inventory. So for the axe, you can equip it or you can drop it. But if I click on something else like the bean or the apple, then I can eat it, I can split it, or I can drop it. And you also have actions that can be assigned to selectables. If I click on a prefab in the scene and I go to the selectable script, it also has action. So the difference is that actions that are assigned to a selectable are actions that will happen when you click on the object in the scenes, while actions that are assigned to an item data file are actions that can be done while this item is in your inventory and not when it's on the floor. There is another tutorial video on the channel that explains how to create your own action. So here you have all the actions that you have in the demo, but this you can code your own. I made a useful tutorial video about all this. One thing that I forgot to mention about the resources and data files is that each item needs to have an ID that is unique to each file. So if you have two files that have the same ID, this can cause issue because the game will not be able to know which one to load. So every time you create a new item, make sure that it's a new ID here. And the difference between this ID here and the unique ID that is directly on the prefab is that this one is unique to each item type, but it's the same. So all the acts in the game will have the same ID. This is really the ID for this type of object. While the unique ID, this one is different for every object. So for example, if I have, let's take the axe. If I have 3 axes in the scene, then for the save file to be able to differentiate each of them, they all need to have a different unique ID here. But they will all have the same ID here on their axe. So this one will stay the same, but here they need to have different unique ID. So I can regenerate one here, or if I just go into the menu and click here, if there are any duplicates, they will be changed by using this tool. Okay, now I'm going to show you a bit of the different things that are very specific to farming engines, especially plants and animals, how they work. So first, let's go and take one of the plant here. Let's go with the pumpkin plant. And I'll explain quickly what are the different settings. There's more about each settings, what they do in the PDF file. So if you don't know what one of the parameter here is doing, then you can just go check in this file and hopefully it will be more clear. The important thing to know is that plants can grow into different stages. So if I look at the pumpkin plant here, it has 3 different growth stages. So it has stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. I can look here. So the first one look like this, the second one look like this. So the plant will grow. On the first day it will be like that, then after a few days it will become like this, and then finally like this. At first it will not have the fruit, and then a bit later the fruit will grow and then you can collect it. So if I look at the first one here, this is the data file, and then you can see which growth stage it is. So on the first one you should always put 0, and then on the second one you put 1, and the third one you put 2 here. Then you can define how you want the time to be counted. So if I put days, that's mean for other parameters here, like the fruit grow time and also the grow time is counted in days. So if I put 2 here, this means 2 days. But if I put hours, then it means 2 hours. And these are game days and game hours. That means it's not real lifetime, it's the time of the clock inside the game, which is usually much faster than the real lifetime. Then you can select which fruit grow from this plant. On the stage 1 there's no fruit, but if I click on the last one, then you can see this one grows a pumpkin. And then how long it takes to grow the pumpkins, same principle. So this is in game days, so this will take 2 days for each pumpkin to appear. And then the fruit also require water. Then you can set a model that will be turned on and off based on if the fruit is ready or not. And the animals works a bit the same way. So here, if I go on animal livestock script, I also have the time type. So again, it's game hours or game days. And the animals will go around and just eat by themselves. So I can click here if I want an animal to eat. And then I can define what kind of food it can eat. So this is a group. Again, I can assign this same group on a different kind of item. So this plant here has this group, but there are other things that have this group assigned. And when it has no food, it will stop growing or it will stop producing items. So each animal can produce things. So this one produce wool. Then you can say what happens when the item is created. So either you can set to drop on the floor. So every time this one creates a wool item, it will be dropped on the floor, but you can also click on collect action. So the difference is that if I do this, then I need to harvest it manually. So instead of being dropped on the floor, then the player need to come and click on the sheet to collect it. So, and growth, this is a bit like the plants. There are baby version of the animals. So if I click on the chick here, this one can grow into a full chicken. And again, it needs to eat 2 times before it can grow, and you need to wait at least 24 game hours before it can grow. Now I'm going to show you how to use layers. So layers, it's a default thing in Unity that you can assign to each object. As you can see here, this one is on the player layer. Then if I click on the floor, this one is on the floor layer. If I go inside the manager, player controls, here I can decide what layer is considered floor. This is important because when you click with the mouse during the game, it needs to know what is the floor so that you know where you're actually clicking in the game. So this is important to assign all the layers here that are considered floor. In Farming Engine, I have different types of floor. So for example, I have floor, soil, and art floor. This is important because this will determine where I'm allowed to use the hoe, and also where I'm allowed to build different kind of buildings. So let's go with the hoe first. I'm just going to go into environment. Then, no, I think it's terrain, road. This one is set to art floor, while this one is set to floor. So that means I will be able to use the hoe on the normal floor, but not on the hard floor. Let's try the hoe. So if I click here, it's working, but then I click on the hard floor, it's not working. Same thing for inside the house. If I go inside the house and I try to hoe, it's not working because this is set on the layer hard floor. Another useful things about layers is to determine what I'm allowed to build. So I will go into construction. Let's look at the fence. So the fence, if I go under buildable script, the fence can only be built on the floor layer. If I want to be able to build it inside the house, I will need to also choose hard floor here. So if I look at the chest, this one is mixed. That means it's set to 2 different things. So this one can actually be built inside the house because it's also set to hard floor. And then you also have soil, which is the object that appear when you use the hoe. And this is usually mostly for plants. So if I go and look at the plants here, blueberry plant, you will see that this one can only be built on soil. It cannot be built on normal floor. How to determine where you're allowed to use the hoe? This is on the character. You can see here. This one, when I use the hoe, it will create this item, which is called hoe soil, which is this object here, which is considered a construction here. And if I go look at this prefab under buildable, then you can see this one can only be built on floor, so it cannot be built on top of another soil or on the hard floor. When you download Farming Engine for the first time, usually you should have mouse and keyboard controls, so desktop controls. But if I want to switch to mobile controls, then I need to go into build settings, click on either Android or iOS, depending on which one you have installed with your Unity. Right now I have Android installed, so I will try this one. And then if I click switch platform, then it will automatically switch to Android. Okay, now I'm in mobile mode, so you can see all the UI is a bit bigger already. If I click here, the buttons are all a bit bigger. And also when I drag the mouse like this, there's a joystick that appears. This makes it easier to move on mobile. And another difference, when you're in mobile mode, there's no icon that appears on the mouse when I select something. Also, the highlight don't appear on over, it only appears when I actually click on the item. And then the building is a bit different too. So if I try to build, let's say I build a barbecue, instead of having the over that appear, because on mobile you don't have the mouse, then it says click to build, and then I can click and hold, and while I'm holding the mouse on the screen, then I can choose where I want to put it. Okay, let's switch back to desktop now. Now I want to show you the save system. When you are in the game, you can save, load, or create a new game. But this is really just the UI for the demo. There's much more you can do with the code. You can create different save slots or delete a save file. If I go in the game script here, I have different functions that I can use, like saving to a specific game file, loading, or creating a new game. And then everything that I saved into the save file is all the variables that are inside this class here. So player data, this contains everything that will be saved and serialized. So you have the file name, and then different things like the current scene, the day, the time of the day, and also all the data related to the player, inventories, and all this. So all these variables will be serialized to a save file when you click on save. On the Discord, there's a code sharing channel where I added a package that shows a demo on how to create your own menu with different slots. So if you want to add a menu, I really suggest that you go on the Discord and download this package, because there's a really good example on how to do that. Alright, so I think this is it for this tutorial. This covers most of the basics. I will let you explore the rest. There's documentation that you can check in the PDF file that is included in the asset. There's also a lot of other tutorial videos if you go on my YouTube channel. A lot of them are for survival engine, but they also applies to farming engine. And of course, if you have questions, you can come on Discord or comment in this video, or just email me, and I will be happy to help. If there's anything that is not clear in the engine, I really want to know, because I will make it more clear in future version, or I will improve things so that it works better. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully everything is more clear after watching this video. Cheers!